In this video, we'll talk about useless things in coins and how they can be used in your survival. Let's start right away with the fact that objectively useless things don't exist in the game. There are just items with a wider application, such as a sword, armor, and the like. And there are situational ones, for example like a minecart with a stove, which we'll talk about by the way. How does this thing even work? You take a minecart with a stove, fit it with coal, and it moves along the rails, regardless of whether they are charged or not, since it moves due to fuel. Many people have a question whether this is really in the game or I made it up because the item is really unpopular. All because in most cases people don't use them as form of transport for movement, because there is ice, a boat, a litras, a horse, and a million more types of movement. It would seem were them to use this, and here I have an answer to your question: moving mobs. If you need to move a villager or another mob from point A to point B, then this option is ideal, because firstly, you don't need to look for gold. Secondly, you don't need to watch the mob and push it if it gets stuck, because the minecart with the stove always moves. And thirdly, you'll spend a minimum of resources, 2 or 3 calls, and the minecart can already travel 3 billion blocks. As you can see, the minecart with the stove is really a situational thing, and that's not bad. This doesn't make the gameplay any worse. It has its place in the game, just not for all players. The next thing we'll talk about is the fireball. I never thought I'd ever talk about its use, because until recently it was a really shitty item. Firstly, it's expensive to make. Secondly, its use is the same time as a lighter, only disposable. Great idea. Before 1.16 there really wasn't use for fireballs, until they were added as loot in chests near portals. What's there to explain? You just get this thing to set this portal on fire. It speeds up the player's entry into the nether or saves you if you get stuck in it. Now let's draw a situation. If you get lost in nether but have looted obsidian in chests, you can use a fireball to activate in U1. This will help speedrunners who will be able to loot a chest faster than craft a lighter. And me, because the situation described above happened to me. By the way, lighter can also be found in chests, so yes, it's a very situational thing. If the lighter at least didn't appear in chests, it would be used much more often in nether. Horse. We'll go over this one harshly, because it's the saddest mob. When it was added, it was a good transportation option. One downside, of course, was the forest. It wasn't very cool to move through it, but otherwise it made sense to move around on it. It was before the elytra were added, because it's the most convenient transportation option in the game in principle. After 1.9, there's no point in creating ideal mews that run fast and jump high, because, well, here there are, elytra, or is not so. Let's be honest, not every one of us made it to the end of the game in survival, and until we get to the elytra, there are many moments where a horse will come in handy. On a journey, it is one of the most useful mobs, because you can ride it, not spend hunger, not spend HP when falling, in principle be faster. And if you're also on a mule, then you have the opportunity to harness your steed. If you look at it this way, it is simply a shulker and a liter in one bottle, and until you have collected them, a mule is an ideal option. Moving on, with beets next. Surely someone used them as food, perhaps someone even made beetroot soup, but after a single use, everything ended. In general, you can't come up with anything here except decorations. Beets can be glued to a barrel, and now it's stored there. So you can say that any item becomes useful, because there will always be a use for building, RP, and the like. Is this bad? No. Is it possible to make beets healer? Yes. At the very least, make this beetroot soup more nutritious. Come on, we put a bunch of beets in there, it takes up a whole slot, and ultimately resources less than a golden carrot. This needs to be fixed, and then beets will be a full-fledged item that has taken its place in the game. Oh, and I forgot, beets can be sold to a villager for emeralds. In principle, this is also a very good use. The dragon's head and dragon's egg were also hated. Although I'm not really sure why, but let's look at them. You get a dragon head on the ship at the end. This thing is needed as a trophy at most. Just like with the heads of other mobs, this is a purely collectible item. The only use for which is to get the dust on the shelf. With the dragon egg, I would say the same situation, but no. I thought now it's really only a collector's item. I still think that its application will be much better. Perhaps when the end is updated, they will come up with something with it, because it even visually looks as if something is planned after defeating the dragon. In general, we're waiting. Right now the dragon egg is just a trophy, but the spyglass was added recently and is unlikely to change its functionality. Its idea is logical to zoom in on objects at a distance, and already during the announcement people were like, wow, this is useless, because this could have been done on Optifine a long time ago. But here, the situation is ambiguous. On the Bedrock version, it was impossible to do this, and even if it was possible, the option is not very popular. Therefore, it makes sense to use it there, but Java has its own jokes. With Optifine, by pressing the C button, you can easily bring this whole thing closer. There are good competitors to Optifine. These are the Sodium and Iris mod, which often optimized Minecraft better than it. But you can't zoom in on some objects there. There's simply no such function. And here again, Spyglass comes to the rescue. Personally, I use it for different reasons. Yes, I can download a mod that can replace all this, but I'm no longer interested in playing like that. It is much more interesting to walk around with such a thing, for the creation of which you mine amethyst and copper. This can be considered and often to abandon the old approximation and use a new one, which has gameplay value in itself. The last item is a map. It became useless for players partly because of F3. Although it's very suitable for decoration, its original meaning was lost. You can find out about how F3 spoiled some things and about the balance of the game as a whole in the video that you seen on the screen. Well, for now, bye.